Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Godless, episode 2. It is called The Ladies of LaBelle. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, once again, we have a 70-minute episode. I think this one maybe did feel a bit overlong, whereas the first one I
Yeah, a
don't
little
think
bit.
did. This one was maybe a little bit long in the
I,
tooth.
I I think it's down to the first one was introducing everything, and this one, while the stuff that it was introducing needed the time, some of the other stuff not quite as much.
Well, from the early reviews I saw that it said like it was kind of like back and forth. Like half the episodes felt like they were perfectly paced, and then the other half were maybe not as much. So I don't even necessarily think it's an introduction thing. I think it's just going to be depend. Like this episode had more various things to do that maybe didn't click together quite as well as the first one did,
Yeah,
and that may just be a case going forward where some feel like that and some don't. That is not to say that it wasn't for the most part enjoyable. There's maybe just a couple of things that lingered a little bit too long here or there. Uh, so where to begin with? I guess we just take the characters and their plots one by one. I suppose we'll start with what the title's kind of referring to, which is the Ladies of LaBelle. We actually got more of a kind of sense of what the town's like now and who's running it and
yeah. I think
what's
you
going
know
on
how we
there.
mentioned last episode we didn't really get that this was the premise.
Hmm.
I think that's because it wasn't supposed to be really until this episode, until this one where it kind of
Yeah.
introduces this idea properly. We weren't really supposed to know that in context of the show.
Well, I think it was technically advertised as that, although I'd never seen that.
I never did either. And like I said, if you read about it, it may have said that. But in terms of just what the show presents, I think this is supposed to be the main introduction of that idea.
Yeah, which is kind of weird in and of itself that doesn't come until episode 2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in some ways it's weird, but in others we don't really get to the town properly until this episode. A lot of the stuff last episode is around the outskirts and
Oh,
kind
see,
of.
I disagree with that because you have that big long introduction to the sheriff riding into town, and it's the cameras looking
No,
around to
that's
everyone.
true.
So I don't think I agree with that per se.
Oh, that's fair.
I know it's a big deal, admittedly. I mean, it's just kind of funny.
It is.
But the plot with them in this episode, you have Mary, who's the sheriff's sister, and she's also the widow of the mayor of the town. The mayor, of course, died with everyone else during the mining accident, and she's there. We have the reporter lady who's there, and some other notable female figures in the town. And they're basically there with this businessman, this Logan, this Mr. Logan, who comes to town to make a deal about going into their mines and getting their, was it that the iron they've got? Is that what they've got in their
No, it
mines?
wasn't iron.
Was it not
It
iron?
was no. I don't know what it was, but iron was from the east because they were
You're
talking
right.
about
You're
that for
right.
the house.
That's why I'm thinking of it though, because they mentioned it a lot.
They did, yeah.
But so yeah, so they're going to go into the mines and so they come in with this fancy dinner. It's all very sort of cordial at first. You can tell Mary's a bit more trepidatious about what's going on. There is a random moment where there's a naked lady across the street, and they quickly
Yeah.
say, "Come on, let's go inside. Let's go inside." Before
I
anyone sees her.
assume that's supposed to be like, well, there's not many men around, so she's just like, why am I bothering wearing clothes?
There's still kids running around though. To be fair.
There is. Yeah,
Including boys. We did see some boys running around last episode, so
yeah,
I feel like it's more of that person's quirk than it is
yeah. It could be.
situational per se. But they're at the dinner table, and as it's going on, you get the sense that if the guy starts to feel really condescending, the more he keeps going. It's about him and his guy who's there to sort of talk about how it's going to work and how the financials work, and they try and convince them that the mines they're not as valuable as people have been claiming, that there's reasons why they're not as good. And Mary keeps challenging it, keeps saying no, you're trying to take the piss, you're trying to do this, and we're not going to have it. But he's like, because he keeps saying these things, like these really degrading things, like, oh, I'm sure it's been you're all desperate for the smell of a man, or something like that. It was all.
I think it's interesting that there's a mixture of opinions from the women.
Mm,
Like some of them seem to be like, yeah, they are. They kind of miss the role that they had before, whereas others like Mary are like, no, we this is us now.
I think that just makes sense.
I agree, yeah.
You got a group of people. Some are going to take to it, and some aren't. Some are just going to want to go back to the way things were, and of course, Mary ultimately is outvoted. Even the others who seem to agree with her kind of just accept that this is just the easy way out. They take the easy route, even though it's a much lower cut of what the overall earnings are going to be, because it's like 10% instead of 50-50, which is what she's striving for, because no, it's their land, it's their town. They built the town. She talks about how when she first got there, it was just a couple of tents, and now they've got a town.
There was like 12 tents, and now there's all this.
Yeah, and it's just it was. I think the scenes did go on a bit too long.
I agree, but I think it's saved mostly by some strong dialogue.
Yeah, there's some strong dialogue. I think it works as well because Logan does, like, as much of a bastard as he is, he's making some kind of valid points about how difficult this is going to be.
Yeah, and he does kind of present it as like, look, yeah, you're very clearly capable. Look what you've done, and you might be able to run the mine, but that's not what I'm offering. I'm offering more. I'm offering the business perspective, which that's what I do, which is I think what convinces a lot of them.
Yeah. There was one survivor. He kind of saunters in. They don't know his name because he was new. So
yeah, it was his first day.
And seemingly he doesn't remember his name now, given that he maybe got injured when everything happened. So they just call him John Doe, which I thought was pretty amusing. But so we're setting up some of the history of the town. We're setting up some of this stuff. Final point I want to make about this scene is that Logan has this ridiculously thick cigar that he pulls out at one point, and I just thought, man, he's just making some sort of pompous statement with that thing. It's not even about enjoying it.
No, I agree. I appreciate as well that it was kind of broken up by fragments of humor in this, because it's a lot of business talk, but there's these funny moments that break it up.
Yeah, there's a couple of things
when he talks to the teacher. It's like, oh, so you always want to be a teacher? It's like, no, I was a whore.
Yeah, it's very casual. He doesn't know how to respond to it. Yeah, there's a couple of little bits like that kind of...
Yeah, they just kind of break it up. And like I say, it goes on a bit too long, but honestly, without these moments, could feel a lot longer.
Honestly, my biggest complaint about this episode is actually the weird structure, because all of this stuff happens in the first half. It's intercut, because it's not all in one big chunk. It cuts between this and the other things that are going on, but it's all in the first half, and then the second half feels like it's almost a new episode to an extent.
It does, you're right, like where... Once that business meeting ends, it's about halfway. Whereas that could have been one episode's worth.
It's not. I mean, I think it's actually earlier than that. But then you see him actually leave with these his carriage. Yeah. You see that a little bit later on. And that's about halfway, and that was like, okay, right. So like it just kind of feels like, and maybe it's just a case of they wanted to like have it just structured in these big longer chunks than. Because I feel like you could probably take their 7 episodes just based on these first 2 and just not spread them out in the sense of spread out the story, just cut them up a bit differently and get 10-hour-long episodes.
Yeah,
or 10, 50-minute episodes.
It very much feels like it runs very fluidly, and it's just cut by, okay, this is where we're going to cut, rather than this is an actual episode, this is a chapter.
Yeah, like I say, it feels very continuous, and it's not.
Yeah, which can be a flaw, because it means that the episodes themselves can lack some individuality, some defining ability of what is that episode about.
But given it's a show on Netflix, which you get the whole thing at once, it's less
not as much of a problem. Yeah,
it kind of works better in this format. Whereas the one complaint we might have had of Twin Peaks, the return when it was on, is that it very much did just flow from one to the other.
Some weeks that wasn't a problem, but other weeks you kind of felt it.
Yes, it just depended what chunk you were getting that week, but it wasn't necessarily crafted to be like, oh, this episode's going to be the big episode everyone talked. I mean, there was kind of one of those, but the rest of them, it was just kind of like, this just happened to be this episode where it is in the timeline, rather than it's structured a certain way to whatever. And this kind of has that going for it as well. So, going with the rest of the characters then. Well, I should probably just stay on them, just Mary specifically for this section. She seems to... the naked lady is at her place later in the episode. And her brother's like pointing out, like, what's going on here? Why is she here? And she's just like, oh, I have needs just like anyone else. And it's just
wasn't the naked lady from outside. It was the teacher.
Was it the teacher? I thought it was the naked lady from earlier on.
No, I'm sure it was the teacher, because she asked them how they're doing with the schoolwork. Oh,
maybe you're right. She had the same hair as the naked, because the teacher for the rest of the episode had her hair done up in like a little thing.
It was only that reference that I was like, oh, it's the teacher.
Because the naked lady from across the street had that, the long sort of puffy hair, which is why I thought it was her. But yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
you're probably right. Okay, fair enough. That's just me misreading that. But anyway, I regardless, so we see that she's changed a lot. Like she's not, because even he says like, oh, you don't seem very maternal anymore. He's like, and she's like, why should I be maternal? Like it's almost like early feminism before like anyone really has a word for it.
It is, and obviously, like her introduction is, when we get I think there's the three of them. We're outside waiting for the businessman to
Mm.
arrive, and they're looking like, can you put on a dress, and she's like, no, this is it now.
Hell, even the first time we saw her last episode, she was sitting. She's basically. I mean, she's wearing her husband's gun belt. She's got the hat on. Like
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
she's definitely like molding into.
She
Who,
feels like the authority figure here.
yeah, and it's part of it feels like because someone had to do it, but also you get kind of feel like she feels that she belongs.
She feels comfortable doing it.
Yeah, whether it's by complete choice or whether it's by she's just kind of slid into that role and it feels right.
Yeah, like I say, it
It
might have been a case of someone had to step up, and as the mayor's wife, that's
just made
where
sense.
yeah, that's how she's gone into it. But she seems to be very comfortable with it, and
Yeah.
and very happy
Which
with
is
what she's
why
doing.
I think the others, especially the reporter who was sort of the other end of the table, it's the other sort of main one. Who there was jokes last episode that the sheriff has the hots for her, but she seems to be on her side, but she kind of caves at the end and just goes
Yeah,
for it. She says, "Let's take the deal," and I think there maybe will be a regret with that
probably. Yeah,
come end of the episode. Although part of me thinks that when Frank's men eventually show up to LaBelle, all these miners that they bring in from out of town are going to be the fodder that get killed left and
yeah,
right.
they're going to be very useful, aren't they?
So that part makes me laugh. But let's jump to the sheriff. Let's jump to his stuff in this episode because he obviously I don't even think we talked about it last episode, but his eyesight's going. Like that's why he had that like the mud on his face, and he was trying. That's why he was seeing Hawk from Twin Peaks because he was trying something different to fix it, which of course wasn't working, and uh, you know. Uh, and Roy notices this. Roy notices that he's like, you can't find his keys, and he's like, even though they're really big and chunky, these big
Yeah.
chunky, like,
I do like the way it's presented to us, though. When
yeah,
the people come into town, with some guns, and he goes out, and we every so often we just get a shot from his perspective, and it's like, and you can just see, okay, it's blood. He's not confident here.
do you know? I liked it they waited till that moment to give us that though, because they could have done that like several
Anytime,
times.
yeah.
Yeah, like while he's looking for the keys, what does it look
But
like?
it's the danger moment.
It's the moment. It's not even just the danger. It's the moment where there's an audience watching him and he falls. It's after he stands up after falling where you see what he sees, and he's looking around and everyone is blurry. He can't see shit, and he has to, oh crap! And it's actually his deputy Whitney, or what's his name? Aye, Whitney. He comes out and he sort of like saves his ass, and he still talks as if he's still second in command, but you kind of feel like he's doing it to make him feel better.
Yeah, yeah. The way he comes out with the guns and makes a real show of it,
Yeah.
makes him feel he feels a bit cocky, a bit smug.
Because we hear that he learned everything from the sheriff, and the sheriff in his day was a fantastic gunman. That he used to be
Yeah.
great at it. He tells this story about how he like took out like three men by himself in one gunfight. Like we hear this story from Whitney. He tells Roy while he's in the prison cell. I kind of like
And
how
then Roy's there going, I did 30.
I kind of like how friendly he is to them actually when he's in the prison cell. Even later on when some of the women come around with lots of food for them, and he's sitting in there, he's got like two pies in front of him, and he's just eating pies. And then Sheriff looks over at Roy, and he's just got like a plate as well. He's inside the cell eating pie.
Yeah.
And even when he leaves, actually, we'll get to why he's leaving. But I like that when he's leaving, he's like, right, you two try and not eat to death. And I like that he doesn't even like say, oh, don't give him pie. He's like, yeah, clearly you two are going to be hanging out with pie, so just
Yeah.
don't. But do you know what I think's funny? We said how this was essentially like an 8-hour movie. I think it's very interesting to me that this episode with the last episode almost as a whole feel like Act 1, because
Yes.
this episode very much sets up the main character like journeys that were going on. Obviously Frank's had his from the beginning, but the sheriff, like, this really becomes about, oh, he wants to do one last big thing before he goes blind. He's got X amount of time left. He thinks 6 months, but I mean, he's not
Who
a
knows?
doctor or anything, so whatever. But he's like, and he finds out like because Roy's like, oh yeah, they were up there, and it's like, oh, they couldn't track you. Yeah, but I'm one man. Like 30, like you could follow their tracks easily. Like you could easily get like and even like town to town, like people notice 30 riders coming in together. Like it's not an everyday thing. And I actually thought he was going to take Roy with him when he made this choice,
I did too.
but he doesn't. He's going to go on himself, and you can't help but feel like you are screwed. Because we saw what you did with those two random gunmen out in the street. You tripped, you made a fool of yourself, and we see how dangerous Frank and his men are. Like, he is screwed. So I'm like, damn, like I really hope he gets his big moment where he does pull off something nice or good.
But he feels kind of doomed.
He feels kind of doomed, and it's. I think it works.
I can see him going out a hero because it'll be like,
Yeah.
well, he's gonna go blind anyway. He's like, well, I'll just go out doing what I know best.
I can see him either going out a hero, or I can see Roy saving him and dying as a result, but letting because the sheriff's got kids. Like, there's reason for him to
Yeah. No,
stick
that's
around.
true.
To give us the happy, even if he is going to have shitty eyesight and can't be a sheriff anymore. Like
Yeah.
so I think that works. Although I liked it when he actually does go looking and he gets to this diner in some other town and he's questioning the waitress and he's like, okay, so they went in that direction or whatever. He's talking to the guy who heard them talk stuff, and he's like, oh, by the way, I might have something for you, and he pulls out like just a really sort of primitive pair of glasses. And he's like, here, try those on, see how you feel. And he looks up because I like how he's so proud that he won't admit that he can't see the menu on the wall, that he has to like just be like, oh, well, I'll just have what's good.
Well, that's it because he's not telling anyone at all except his sister does know because he kind of makes reference to it.
Yeah, and obviously Roy figures it out because he's a he pays attention, he notices these things.
But it implies people like I don't think the deputy knows, even though he comes out and saves him, but he never makes it clear that he's aware.
Yeah, I mean, I think he might have an inkling because
he might know, but they've never spoke about it.
Yeah, because later on he's like, it's kind of like how he knows, but yeah, he's never actually come out and said it because when he's loading the shotgun and he's trying to put more shells in, and he's like, hey, I think your shotgun's full there, boss. And I was like,
yeah, I think he knows, but doesn't want to undermine him. He's being nice, being like, just let him do his thing.
Yeah, but no, it feels like he's going off to his doom. So, but no, I like the start of that journey. I actually kind of like his story now. I feel like, no, it's like, for him, it's not about anything else except he wants to do one last good thing before he's done. Because he feels useless. He feels like he's not been able to do anything. He feels like everyone's laughing at him. He's like, he wants to prove himself one last time.
And again, to go back to, it's just we said last episode that this was very typical, not necessarily original, these ideas. And this is, again, it's a very common idea, like one last thing before the end, be a hero. It's a very common idea, but it works, it's solid, and it's I think it's pulled off in some really strong acting.
Oh, it is, yeah. And I think it's interesting because as much as these are all sort of typical tropes, because it is an 8-hour movie, we have time for multiple like characters, and I feel like you wouldn't typically get him and get Roy, who's the outlaw with the heart of gold. Like, but we've got both. And maybe the interesting thing will be seeing how they mix and collide and help each other later and where that goes.
Yeah, it's just true. It's usually one or the other.
Yeah. And so then, of course, Alice, who the first half of the episode is basically she can't handle horses.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because obviously we were shown, and everyone talks about Alice, about how capable she is. I like that she's not perfect. She's like, okay, she's capable, but clearly there's things that she never had to do and doesn't know how to do.
She's capable at certain things, but she's not capable at this. And we find out the reason why, because her husband got shot, and then the person who did it got sick later and died. Like, they think she put a hex on him or something like that, and that's why everyone's got all these rumors have all spread from that. But she actually comes and breaks Roy out of prison. And
it's a really, really comical scene.
It's a really funny, and it's amped up as well. There's little things that make it much funnier. Like, she's like, right, take off your guns, Whitney, and he takes off one gun belt. He's like, oh, I've got a second, and then he's standing there taking time to get the other one off, and then he's like, all right, so open the cell door, you go in, you come out, and then like give him the keys, and he's going to. It's actually Roy now who's taking too long, and he's like, you're going to have to show me which key.
yeah, but I like as well that Roy's kind of looking at him going, sorry, we enjoyed the food, but I don't have any choice here either.
Yeah. I liked how this was shot. The camera really emphasised how long her rifle was. Like, it was constantly it was almost like a 3D movie where it was poking right at the camera. It was like, hey, right in your face. Yeah. She knows how to use this thing, so don't test her. So she takes him back up, and basically she just wants him to help train her how to use the horses. And she's like, oh, like, I can't pay you, but like when we're done, you can take the best horse for yourself and ride off. And he's like, okay, but there's one more thing I'd have to ask of you. And part of me like sort of like, oh god, is this going to turn romantic or sexual?
I think she's thinking that as well, though, 'cause she looks uncomfortable. She's like, what is it?
Yeah. And it's actually a really nice little payoff, because we know he's got this letter. She even picked it up, like earlier in the episode and said, "Oh, hey, he's left his letter here. I'll keep that handy for him."
And this is why she's saying you can have the horse, because like she's clearly read it and gone, oh no, because I think she says you can go to California. I think it was. It'll take you all the way there.
Oh, I don't think she's read it, because I think it's still sealed. I think there's a return address on it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I think she's left it sealed out of respect. Like, you don't open.
Yeah, no, that works too.
But it's just a nice little touch. It's just a nice payoff where he's like, "Oh, can you teach me to read?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's why he's not opened it." Because he can't read it anyway, so why would he?
Yeah, he doesn't trust anyone to read it for him.
Yeah, he wants to read it himself, which is a really nice little, I think, character. Because he is so capable, he's such a badass, he clearly can handle himself, he's going to be this big action hero, but he can't do something as simple as read. That's a really nice little
It's why I think it
for his
pairs
character.
really nicely with Alice. Like I said, she's very capable. But then when it comes to the horses, not a clue.
Yeah, it's a really nice touch for his character. It gives him this kind of not flaw, but like a weakness per se that he has to kind of build on, and it gives him. And I like the idea that he could give the letter to someone he trusts to read it to him. But I love the idea that whoever this is from, is it a girlfriend, a wife, a mother, whatever. But he wants to read this himself. This is too personal and private that. It's not even so much that he cares that someone else hears it, if to read it out loud, but he just wants to be the one who reads it because it means that much to him.
Yeah,
and I kind of like that as a character journey.
You have to assume that the letter is something like that is that important, because otherwise, he would have taken this. I want to learn to read any letter that he's got in the past, but it's this one that he's going. No, I want to be the one to read this.
Yeah, so I might guess natural parent, because of the story that Frank tells in another scene about how. He doesn't tell a scene about. He kind of tells a scene about how he got him, but basically how he adopted him and took him from his family. Basically, is what happened.
Yeah, we get that, and we get the first hints of that as well. In the between the I think it was the sheriff and Roy, where he's like, why is he chasing you? What did you hurt him? Just was it just that you stole from him? And it was the idea that no, he was like family, and I betrayed him.
Yeah, he thinks of me as his son, so now he's determined to get me back.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So we'll jump over to Frank, and very evil. He goes to the newspaper man, who he's very upset. Because we actually cut to a scene at one point, and I actually thought it was narration because the guy's voice was so good. But
yeah, I did too.
He's sort of reading it on, because it sounded like that sort of narration at the start of a western, like, and Frank rode across the land, fleeing the law, and it was all very dramatic. And then the camera came down; it was just one of Frank's henchmen reading the newspaper, and I'm like, oh, he's got a good voice.
Dude's got a good voice.
They hired him. He was specifically cast as that for a reason.
Definitely.
And Frank's not very happy, so they all show up. All 30 of them show up inside this guy's house and threaten him immensely to write another story about how just about how Frank's not a bad guy, and how any town that harbours Roy is going to get doomed, because look at that other town we just went to. Not everyone there's dead.
What I found really interesting is the journalist man, is a lot of it is he's saying no, I choose what the truth is. I'm not just writing these fake stories, but a lot of it isn't fake. The part about Frank being a good guy, sure.
Yeah.
But the part where he says, Roy betrayed me and stole from me, and anyone who harbors him,
it's a threat, but it's a true threat. He will do it.
It is, exactly. So maybe the journalist can justify it to himself by going, no, I can use this as a warning to people, in case they find him.
Yeah, because basically, because he can tell people, if you harbour this guy, they will come and kill everyone. So, it makes some sense in that that way.
Again, I love that Frank is so evil that he relishes in what he did to that town. He goes, you just see the people walking along the streets. Well, I mean, if they had any streets left,
or
people.
Do you know what I liked about the start of that scene? See, when he first walked out and you see all the men, I actually liked that it took me a couple of seconds to find Frank. Like, he was talking, but I didn't know which one was him. I was kind of looking around the screen going, oh, there's he on the couch. But it's like, they didn't emphasise him any more than any other one else in the room.
No, he has a presence, but I think it's a testament to his men all being, having their own presence as well, rather than a knock on him.
It was like I could hear the voice, but I couldn't see where it was coming. And it took me I had to scan the faces a little bit, and then I noticed them moving. I was like, okay, there he is on the couch. Yeah. But it took me a minute, and I think that was intentional, and I think it worked quite well to
Yeah, it's this idea of a crowd. We keep
yeah,
going back to this the show. It's 30 men. It's hard to hide 30 men, but it's easy to hide one person inside 30.
absolutely, yeah. Uh, so so they're looking for him, and they end up coming across this family. It's a big family. It's like two brothers and their wives and their kids. So it's sort of two sets of like one family essentially, and they're at a campfire, and you're like, oh god, what's Frank going to do to these people? Because he's basically just like, oh, so Roy mate, I rode through here. Like, did you see him? And I don't think there's any reason why he should suspect they're lying because how long have they been here? Like,
No, I don't think he does
yeah.
either.
But he sits there. It's very intimidating. He gets one of their sons on his knee, and he tells a story about how he lost his parents, and he was taken in. He had a new papa, and this new guy and one of his wives were taking his like parents' clothes, and it was all. And he's like, and I did that for Roy. I took him in, and he can.
Yeah.
It's all very intimidating because you're like, is he going to steal these kids? So is that what he's doing? Like,
It was, and it's the way he goes. He goes, oh no, these guys, they taught me how to love, like, and but he talks about it in this really sadistic way. It's like, they would beat him, and they would do all these harsh things, like, but they taught him how to love, and he goes, and I showed that same love to Roy, and was like, it's like, do you love these guys or do you hate them? It's kind of this
I
weird
think
line.
his warped sense of thing, probably both. I mean,
Yeah, it's almost like this love born out of a respect for what they did. Like it's this authority and
it
power.
sounds like just to make a reference to something that we know from elsewhere, but it sounds like Ra's al Ghul in Batman, like how he would raise Talia. Was like so that recent issue of Batman where he's like, she said, oh, as soon as you can walk, here's a sword. Fight, or you failed, all right, punished, right, try again. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I think it's this idea that it's why he has this thing for power. It's he respects the power above him and learnt that at a young age, clearly. And I think instead of fearing it, he was like, no, I want to be that. So that it's the love of the power more than the people.
And he ends this all by just kind of saying, oh yeah, we'll sleep over there, and we'll leave in the morning, and leave you people be, and that's all fine. And then he just adds on at the end, oh, though first one of you two men should decide which wife is going to come have sex with me later on tonight.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this start, they have basically no choice. And when they wake up the next morning, and he's almost surprised, because he had a little nightmare, this little flashback nightmare, and he wakes up and he's almost surprised to see a woman. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I did that. And he gets up and he's all kind of, and he actually starts yelling at the men. He's like, why didn't you fight back? Like, how dare you? Like, do you not have no respect for yourselves? Like, he's almost angry. And this is the thing: if they'd fought back, they'd killed the whole family.
Yeah, of course.
It's
It's going down to the thing I was just saying, like, this respect of power, at least a show of power. He'd have respected them, even if he killed them.
Yeah, and of course, this is where we get to the big speech where he's like, "This is godless countries." Oh, here you go, name of the show. In a sense,
and we did get that little hint in, I think it was with the sheriff, where the guy was talking about these people who had interesting views on religion.
Yeah, Frank clearly is.
Yeah. But obviously, we don't know this about Frank yet.
Yeah.
When we have that speech.
Yeah. Well, obviously it was hinted last episode because he had the collar on and he went into the church and like, so there was it's been building up.
Yeah, but not in the same.
episodes.
Like, 'cause obviously we got quite a bit. They were talking, it was the guy selling the glasses talking about meeting them at, I think it was a casino, and all this really interesting views on religion. And obviously we got, like I say, we had the collar, so there was something there.
Yeah, and also the woman he slept with, like, butt naked, like, has grabbed one of his rifles and starts like firing it off, and she doesn't do anything with it. They subdue her very quickly. But I like that in the sense of showing the chaos that he leaves behind him. Like, this was a happy family before he showed up, and now like one of the mums is like running around naked with a gun trying to shoot someone. Like, this is like normal, and then just chaos. You don't get more chaotic than running naked with a gun. And
not really, no.
Because obviously what they've all went through, especially her more than anyone, it's horrific. But and then obviously we get to the end of the episode here, and he actually is like, "What's with all these bees?" And it's actually his his cut off arm is got all covered in bees. It's it's rotten. It's attracting all these insects and stuff, and the bugs and the bees, obviously. But And I didn't notice this at first, but then because he's like, okay, what town's that direction? And he's like, oh, it's whatever. And he's like, okay, that's where we're going. And then the camera, it's this really nice shot where it comes down and he looks down at the hand and you just see the finger on the cut off hands pointing that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, he's looking for signs. He sees this as a sign from God. Or
It is. I think. Well, that's the thing I find most interesting is he's just had this big speech about his feelings on God or lack thereof in this time and place, and here he is taking a sign. It's this dichotomy.
Yeah. Hypocrisy, perhaps.
It is. Yeah. It's this idea that he claims that there is, this is godless, as he says, but at the same time he's desperate for something to guide him.
I think it could be his weird warped perception again, where when he says godless, he means, oh, you have to protect yourself, you have to do this and that, but it might not actually extend to the idea of like he's not necessarily saying that God's not there, he just doesn't intervene or that kind of idea.
Right, yeah. But either way, it's the idea that God is impartial, like just watching for him, maybe, like you say, not intervening, but here he is like this is a sign, this is something that's intervened and gone that way.
You could actually read this in a much more egotistical way. He could be, because this is his arm.
Yeah, it's his own message to himself.
It's he's God in this instance. He's because this is godless, he became his own god.
Well, yeah, he's the center of his own world.
Yeah.
He is the ultimate power for himself. Yeah, no, I like that idea.
So that's actually how we end the episode. Is just the hand pointing over to this town. Not LaBelle though. We're not quite there yet. But like I say, because we started this journey of, okay, Roy's going to learn to read.
Yeah.
Help out Alice. The sheriff is determined to go and hunt down Frank, even though he's clearly ill-equipped to do so. But it feels like we're setting up all these different things that it now feels like, okay, we've set up, this is Act 1 more or less done. Arguably, I mean, Episode 3 might still be at kind of Act 1 depending on what it does with it, but it certainly feels like, okay, I'm getting a sense of what the show is now.
There is, and there's lots of just interesting little things that we haven't really touched on. Like last episode we talked about, will Frank show up and be like, oh, it's this town of women, it'll be easy conquest, and one of the women kind of mentions that it's been rough. There's anyone who comes through sees that it's just women and thinks they can get away with anything. Yeah,
which is kind of what those two random gunmen are maybe kind of representing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, if that's the trouble that two gunmen can cause potentially, like the whole town comes out and watches, what's it going to be like when 30 show up?
Yeah. I'm looking forward. One of our commenters did kind of hint that the showdown when we get there is impressive, and I don't doubt it based on how.
No, I'd be more surprised if it wasn't.
Yeah, but no. So that's episode 2. Godless. We'll be back with episode 3 Sunday.
Maybe Monday.
Possibly Sunday. It depends. But yeah. But yeah, that's when we should be back with episode 3. So, let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can do that over there. But otherwise, that's us. So, thank you once again. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?